This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy. We're giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate, where we can cover the market trends, news, and honest answers to keep you ahead of the real estate game. Laricy Live is brought to you by Lincoln Title. Lincoln Title is the best and most efficient title company in Chicago and is the best place to close your property. Laricy Live is brought to you by Guaranteed Rate and Ben Cohen. Ben Cohen is the #1 lender in Illinois and can close your loan in as fast as 8 days. So we are here today to discuss the 2023 stats. I always say you could say it's good market, you could say it's bad market, but ultimately all that matters are the stats. Numbers don't lie. There's that old saying that numbers do not lie. A few big things to know is that this kind of remained still as a tale of two cities, with the outskirts overperforming and the downtown markets underperforming. This is now the fourth year in a row that the outskirts has overperformed, with the downtown markets underperforming, and the suburb markets, not that we're getting into suburb stats, but with the suburb markets being on a whole different seller market level. A few big takeaways from this year was that there was a housing freeze. Okay, so there was a lot less inventory, and that created less sales. The housing freeze was because most people were locked in to 3% or less interest rates, and there was no motivation to sell, to buy up. So that created less inventory, which created a little bit of a freeze, which created less sales. So these stats are brought to you from InfoSparks, which is gets its information directly from the MLS. So these aren't like numbers that I made up. I get them off InfoSparks, which gets their information from the MLS. So, and also this information is for the South Loop up to Lakeview, and then from Logan Square down to West Loop. So let's look at sales price. Sales price was up on average 1.3%. So that's not a huge amount to be up, is only 1.3%. The Loop was down the most. The Loop was down 10.8%. And another downtown market is the near north side. It was down 5.9%. And then you compare that to, let's look at Lincoln Park, which was up 5.2%. Or like a Lakeview that was up 3.9%. So you see the differences. You got downtown's pricing was down quite a bit, and the outskirts was up a little bit more than average. Average is about 2 to 3% a year in Chicago, so that they exceeded the average. That's a big difference. Looked at market time. For a market time, we had an average of 50.5 days of market time. 50.5 days. The near north side had the most market time at 108 days. That's huge. And then you look at the lowest market time, which is North Center, which includes Roscoe Village. They're at 15 days. So this is what I always tell people. Is you say it's a good market or bad market. I always well, where are you selling? And what's the price point? Because if you're in Roscoe Village and you got a 15 days average market, and you're in the near north side and you have 108 days, that's a huge difference. The Loop was 93 days, okay? Then you look at something like, Lincoln Park, 16 days. So when we talk about the outskirts are overperforming the downtown markets, just look at the data. It's huge. Months of inventory. Months of inventory is my favorite stat, because this kind of really shows you, what's moving, what's not moving, and how much inventory is really sitting there. On average, the months of inventory was 2.82%, okay? The highest, the king, the one that doesn't want to win this title, is the near north side with 5.6 months. So the near north side's at 5.6 months. And then you look at the Loop, which is 4.5 months. So both of them are in buyer's markets the entire year. And then you look at things like Roscoe Village, they're at 1.6. Logan Square, 1.5. Lakeview, 1.6. So you see all the outskirts were hovering around less than 2 months or lower, and the downtowns are all hovering at 4 or more. It's a big difference. Again, huge difference in the marketplace. Another big stat to know about months of inventory, because this is general stats. You look at the downtown markets above 1.5 million, they got 18 months of inventory. 18 months of inventory for above 1.5 million. So, these are general stats, but when we break them down, it's important to see what a big difference there is between the marketplaces. Closings. Always be closing. The stat that matters. Closings were down on average 27% this year. 27%. Now, there were some areas that were down more than others. This is where the outskirts actually were down more. You look at Logan Square was down the most at 32.7%. They were minus 32.7%. Whereas the Loop, which is one of the hardest hit areas in the city, they were only minus 13.2%. So if you look at the closings and you may say, hey, well, this seems like this could be pretty good, right? The downtown markets had, more closings than the outskirts. The reality is it's because they had a lot more inventory. So if you have more inventory, you're going to have more closings. So when we look at numbers, we have to really dissect what it really means. These are just generalizations to kind of look at, and then we have to try to, study the trends and then try to predict the future with the stats that we have. Those are the stats. I like looking at the numbers. By looking at the numbers, it shows me not where the puck is, but where the puck is going to go. And I think that if we continue to study these, it gives us good insight. And this is only one form of data that I use to try to, predict the market for next year. And for this year in 2024, obviously it's too early to tell, but I do think that we're going to have a gangbuster spring market. And I'm not saying that there's going to be a comeback in the downtown markets, but I do think they're going to be better than they were the previous four. I'm a big believer in real estate. It goes in cycles and 5-year cycles, and I think we're in the 4th year of a 5th-year cycle. So I do think it's going to be better than it was the year before. I mean, last year's stats, the downtown markets were better than they were 2 years ago. So we are seeing things improve, but I do still think the outskirts are going to crush it this year. So, don't take my word for it, though. These are the overall stats for 2023. I look forward to dissecting Q1 stats with you guys soon. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.